Ladies and gentlemen, you wanted it, you got it. The place for the untold, real, raw, and juicy stories of dirt track racing. It's Dirt Track Confessions. And now here's your host, Mandee Pauch Mahaney.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dirt Track Confessions. I'm your host, Mandee Pauch Mahaney. On this week's episode, we have a prominent figure in the motorsports industry, the man behind the aerial auto racing news, the motorsports trade show, and the indoor auto racing series held up here in the Northeast, Len Sammons. How are you, sir?
I'm doing just fine.
We had some technical difficulties, but we are here.
We did do that. It took a little bit, a couple different ways of doing it, but we're on up now.
We're here. So, Lenny, can you kind of take us back to, I mean, this is going to be deep here, but kind of to where like all started for you? You know, like how did the aerial auto racing news transpire into what it is today, and how, honestly, like everything kind of like unfolded, really?
It all started in 1963 by my father and my mother. My father actually was in the hospital for an ulcer operation, and that's when he decided to start a business, which wasn't really a great idea. But he was a big racing fan. He used to go to the races locally and wanted to get more involved in the coverage of racing, which they got very little at the time. There was only National Speed Sport News and Illustrated Speedway News at the time. Neither of them were interested in covering local racing, the Saturday night racetracks, more the national scene, and they just dabbled in the other stuff. And so he would call in the results for the Trenton Times after the races, go to a payphone and right from the track, at least give him a little bit of a story, and got some coverage that way. And when he was denied again from the two other racing papers, he started his own. It was only 4 pages the first time out, and he had no idea. He had no background in publishing. Harold Rulon was a well-known scorer for Flemington and East Windsor at the time. Well, East Windsor hadn't opened at the time. They were just getting ready to open. But he was in the printing business a little bit, so he helped them do the first paper, and there it went from 4 to 8 to 12 and continued to get bigger.
That's amazing. Okay, so it started with Dad, and then essentially you took it over. So, I mean, what did you envision? Like, did you envision ending up where you are now? I mean, like...
No, it was all the women, just like racing. You never know where it's going to take you. My father, unfortunately, had health problems most of his life, with ulcers and later with cancer. And he passed away when I was in high school, or he got sick, very sick when I was in high school. So I canceled my college plans and went to work on a work program when I was a senior in high school, and learned on the job from some really good people. Pat Singer worked for us. Bill Singer, the announcer, he worked for us for a while. And Pat was really instrumental in helping me a lot, and I think we helped her a lot. She was a real person that broke a lot of barriers for women in racing. First women in a press box at Daytona or Indianapolis or Daytona or Talladega, those type of things. Darlington was the hardest. They wouldn't let her in, and she had grown such a reputation in the national scene that a couple of the major sports writers for the dailies in the South stood up for her, that they weren't going to go to Darlington if she couldn't go to Darlington, and that opened the doors for her to do that. And Pat was real good. She moved on to working as a editor here in the Philadelphia papers, and then she moved back to Texas, where she was really from, and that was the last I seen of her. But fortunately, she passed away many years ago. She was really helpful to me as a writer and laying out a paper and things of that nature.
Okay, so we're gonna dig. We're digging, Len. So,
okay,
because you do so much, and it's very, very impressive. Like, did you ever envision? Like, I feel like you are quite the central figure, in grassroots racing, because it's not just dirt, it's not just asphalt. Like, you do a mix of everything. Did you envision when you started this at, what'd you say, senior in high school, like being where you are, doing what you're doing?
No, actually, my father he had no mechanical background, and neither do I. So because of that, your dad was a great influence on your son, or your brother rather, racing, Billy. I didn't have that. I never had a race car or anything like that. He bought me a camera, so he actually was directing my future, I would think, without me really knowing it. He got me involved in photography, so I started out as a photographer more than a writer, and then learned the printing business. We had a printing business of our own, and at one point we even printed the area auto for a short period of time. That's a very lengthy story what happened there.
Yeah.
But so I learned the printing business and photography business, and then slowly got more into writing and whatnot. And then again, I learned from some great people. I was really lucky to have many people work with me that I helped them, I think, but I learned from each one of them. Jerry Regal was a great influence later on, and Kevin Kovac. Brett Deo worked for me as a writer for a while. They had college backgrounds, which I learned a lot from that,
Yeah.
So that was helpful. And then I was writing and taking pictures at the same time, and almost got run over at Wall Stadium, and that kind of decided at that point that I better do one or the other, and writing was a little bit more needed at the time, so I went into that direction. I always thought that as far as the other venues that we do, the motorsports show was something I wanted to do, but there was no place to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the Valley Forge Convention Center opened up, I said, let's jump in and try this. And my father was still alive at the time. He wasn't feeling very well. His health was an issue. But my mother and father and sister, and we only had like 8 people helping us, and we got way more people than we thought we would the first year.
Yeah.
We were only on 25,000 square feet of the bottom floor of the Valley Forge Convention Center. Before we left there, we were taking all 3 floors, and we put a 30,000 square foot tent out in the parking lot. And then, as things worked out, the Fort Washington Expo opened, and we moved there, and that gave us 200,000 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kept snowballing from there. It kept getting bigger and bigger, and more help. And when I was a kid, we used to sell the novelties at a lot of the racetracks. My father was in the novelty business to help support the racing paper, and one of them was we did the novelties at Atlantic City Convention Hall for the indoor races. So that was my next goal, to get involved in that, and they wouldn't take us at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Gambling came in, they changed the building, and they just weren't interested. They wouldn't budge. So we did one in downtown Philadelphia first, and that sold out. Philadelphia Convention Center, but the next year they took on LaSalle basketball, couldn't get dates again, and finally was able to work our way into getting in Atlantic City by giving a hope that maybe we would bring the motorsports show there. That's really what opened the doors for the indoor racing, and fortunately we ended up going there when Fort Washington closed for 3 years, and then once today's location, the Greater Philadelphia Expo Center, opened up, we split the two up because we were doing both the same weekend.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It was a lot, and actually, again, as you say, things fall into place. But while me and Joe Pratt, who was an anchor for us for so long, unfortunately he passed away, and Joe and me ran the motorsports show, and Danny and his brother, they were both very young, Danny, they more or less ran the race with Bob Miller's help at the same time. But Danny became more and more active since then, and Davey were running that, and we wouldn't be able to do all these events if it wasn't for those two.
Yeah.
They handled more and more of it all the time.
Wow. So what do you when I say, like, air quotes here, Lenny, like your first big break, with everything that you've built for yourself, for your family, do you think that there was like that aha moment, or like something that went so well that you're like, okay, this helped set the tone for where you are today?
Yeah, I don't know. The racing paper grew, and grew it continuously, and a lot of that was because the tracks were doing so well. You know, they were packing the grandstands back in the day. Look at the pictures of the grandstands then and now, and there's quite a difference, unfortunately. And you know, then the divisions were growing, and of course the paper grew because of that. Then we went through a period of time where there's newspapers. There was 23 racing papers in the country at one time. You know, from coast to coast. And we had a lot of competition, which made you work hard. And you know, we got the right people to write for us or to work at the office, and we were able to continue going, where they've all now gone away. Even National Speed Sport News was a icon, and he was right here in New Jersey, Ridgewood, New Jersey. Chris Economack, he was a guy that I admired quite a bit, and we shared a lot of information. Now, I was new school and he was old school, so as printing changed, he came to me, and you know, and he taught me a lot about the racing side of it. But at the same time, we helped him a lot as far as publishing, and when we went to cold type, and you know, and now to digital. You know, we were a little bit ahead of the scheme on all of that. It's, you know, we used to have a trio of people that would pass photos along on Sundays at different tracks, and Steve Barrick and his programs was part of that, where people would take pictures to Nazareth because there was no digital photo. You couldn't just download a picture. We had to have the original. So it was either go to and get express mail to get it to us on Tuesday morning, or do it on our train system. Bob Corpenny worked for us for a considerable amount of time, and he drove home. He lived in Harrisburg, and every Monday he would stop 3 times on the turnpike and meet people who met other people. And by the time he got to the office, he had about 20 packages. Some were for Steve, so Steve's dad would come down from Flemington every Monday, and we'd exchange all our pictures that I collected for Steve, or vice versa.
So now, isn't it like the deadline to complete the newspaper? Is that on Monday nights, or?
Yeah, we have to be we have to send our files by 1 a.m. in the morning, so that it's we work Sundays now. When we started, I dabbled a little bit in the old, showing my age a little bit, but the old hot lead printing, where everything was done in you know, in a crush type manner, like rubber stamp type printing. You know what I mean? Where it was all raised printing, and it's done on a big press with hot lead, you know, and keystroking everything on an old fashioned machine of molds, more or less. Each letter had a mold. And every picture had to have a zinc engraving. Till we used to print on Wednesday. The paper went in the mail Wednesday at noontime, 2:00 or something like that. To every time that the system got better, we kept moving up. And now, you know, like Daytona's run on a Monday a few times, and the photographers are downloading photos, you know, as the event goes on. And we got that at Super Dirt Week a couple of years ago when they ran on Monday, where I had to leave and to do the paper, but we were getting stories sent to us from our writers and photos as the race was progressing. So I mean, that's why we can do it at 1 a.m. in the morning. It's still a lot. We eat dinner there when nobody leaves. They come in at 9:00 in the morning, and they don't leave until it's sent. But and that's 4 people that are pretty dedicated in what they do.
That is impressive. So, I mean, you kind of just touched on it with the old school printing, but like, how has the role of, you know, I guess like print media per se in motorsports changed over the years? And like you kind of touched on, is like, how have you adapted to those changes? You know, like you just said, like the things just kept improving, and so what did that look like?
Well, you know, again, when I was younger, if I went to Reading, say on a Friday night, and I wanted to know who wanted East Windsor, I had to call the track's phone number, 4:11 or 11:30, because that office wasn't open the rest of the week. So you had to call and hope somebody answered, and hope whoever answered knew who won. You know, my father used to collect for a lot of people back in, you know, before my day. I remember him telling me, like, he would call Nazareth and say, you know, is Altaz Nady there? You know, this is a collect call for Altaz Nady. And they would say, no, he's not here. It's Frankie Schneider. Frankie Schneider's here. Frankie Schneider, Stan Pulaski, Sammy Beaver, and it would be the top three, so they wouldn't have to pay for the phone call. He would tell
That's
you
hilarious.
to finish instead, and he would make several phone calls on that. There was a Skull Bandit report that used to give you the race report. Charlie Roberts from New Jersey had a deal where he would call and get all that information, and on a Monday he would have a recording, I think it was, that you could call a number and you could hear who won certain races. Now today people are texting that information as time goes along, or sending a photo, of the winner in victory lane. So we changed our standard, that we went to more than who just won. We could just publish a paper of just race results, and everybody would be happy because you couldn't find it. Where today we have to be more in depth, find background stories. We're working the pits after the race and trying to find out what people don't know. Certainly if they're watching it on television now, or on Flow Television. That ends when the checker flag falls, or after victory lane. We're not listening to that. We're trying to find out the stories in the background that you're not going to find.
I like that, because that was going to be my question, is the fact that you guys are still, I guess we'll say, thriving, with a physical, actual newspaper that people can get mailed to their, to their doorstep. But you're also against, I don't know if it's against the clock, but like you just said, you're against instant gratification of, I know already who won.
Right.
Why do I need the racing paper? So I like that you're trying to do more, offer more than what they can find online.
Yeah, it's a lot harder in a sense, as for the writers it is. Again, we still do cover race results because we believe that's important, because while you might find out who won your track or your 2 or 3 tracks that you race at or want to know, you don't put the Stafford Springs asphalt modifieds together with the super modifieds or some of the smaller tracks.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, publicity of tracks has become really, really bad anymore. So many tracks have become just back gate oriented, where they don't count how many people in the grandstand, they count how many cars are in the pit area, and that's all that matters. Pit passes cost twice as much as front gate tickets, so it's easier to sell. They sell the fuel, they sell that, which is great. They found a lot of revenue sources that way. But there's probably 20 racetracks that we cover that don't even send out race results anymore.
Yeah.
They don't post them on their Facebook page. They don't put them on their website.
Like it never happened.
We just printed our year-end edition with all the points standing on it. And we have to be careful because sometimes they're from the year before. We go to their websites or their Facebook looking for points, and they might stop posting them in June or July, or maybe the last week of the year they never posted. And we got caught a couple times where we ran them in the year-end edition. People call up, well, no, that's not it.
Yeah.
So it's a shame, but the sport has changed a lot because of that, I think.
That does surprise me. I mean, there are some of the really, really old school grassroots tracks that they're like, no live streaming,
Right.
no nothing. And it's like, I personally feel like if it works, it works, but you got to feed the new blood and you got to get out to them too. Right?
But I don't think you're getting to the new blood when you're just taking the customers out of the grandstands. I think, when the World of Outlaws are on Fox or Fox One or whatever on a network station, the people are you're somebody's clicking channels and going, hey, this is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not buying Flow or Dirt Vision unless they're diehard race fans.
Yeah.
Now they could look again. In their defense, they could look at a race at Williams Grove or whatever and see it and say, that's pretty cool. I got to go to Williams Grove. That's a cool place. Mm-hmm. So that it does sell it. But are they developing new fans? No, not at all. And unfortunately, when I grew up, the big writers even in Flemington, or especially Trenton or Langhorne, all these tracks that were in the area, the big writers were the guys from the Trenton Times and the Trentonian, the Philadelphia Inquirer. If a guy from the Philadelphia Daily News came to your racetrack and you've got a story in it, that was huge.
Yeah.
But I run into people a lot, and they'll have seen a story somewhere that, like, Wall Stadium closed for a year, or when COVID wasn't open, and people say to me, is that New Egypt Speedway still open? Are they closed, or and then they've never closed.
Yeah.
But the general average people in my area here, they don't see it, and there's no coverage in the local newspapers anymore. There's no coverage on television.
Yeah.
You go to the Albany market or Harrisburg, they still have it. They'll still get on TV when Williams Grove sometimes. If they get over early enough, there might be a clip, or at least at the end of the sports, will tell you who won the feature.
Yeah.
So people know that's alive, but that's not happening in the Philadelphia market or the New York City market, a place like Middletown or something like that.
Good point. Good point. So this actually kind of side note, which you talked about, like publishing. For you personally, Lenny, because you still go around with your recorder in the pits. I see it. I love it. Like you're doing it all. And it's a question that I've always wondered is it can be such a tricky space, when it comes to sharing certain information in what you do with the racing paper, with online stuff. How do you personally determine like what is fair game to share versus, okay, this might need to stay private, or like, it shouldn't be put out there. But at the same time, it's like, you want the juicy stuff. Is there a fine line? Do we have gray area?
Yeah, there's some gray. There's certainly personal area, husband and wife situations or things like that. We try to stay away from that, of course. But, if it happens on the racetrack in the public eye, then it's a little bit different. And if they tell me in their microphone, in my tape recorder, I mean, they know I'm a writer. It's not like, that's dead even. That they're saying it for a purpose. And I've had a couple of people that I walk away and go, I don't know if he should have said that or not, but that's good stuff. I've got to go for that. But if they tell me, and I've had friends that got mad at me over the years where they said something and then I write it and they go, I didn't think, well, I am a writer, that there is off the record, which most people do use or understand, and they'll say, wait, or, don't go there, or they even get calls later. Some racers are really good at that. They'll say something and then they'll call me later and say, hey, I've been thinking about that. I looked at the video now, and it's not really what happened. So could we change that? And of course I do, it's a reputation that you have to acquire and keep to get that people to talk to, or trust that you're going to get it right.
Yeah, because you want to sell the news and the juicy stuff, but you want to build that rapport for people to trust you.
Sure. Yeah. That's a fine line, but I'm glad to say the people I've been covering for 30 years are still like your dad, and he knows, he doesn't talk when he doesn't want to talk. He's walked away, but he'll call me later on, and there's been several incidents of that, and I've seen it where it's not a good time to talk to him. He does that too. You have to learn how to read the situation.
Are you enjoying this episode, want even more, or want a closer connection to the DTU fam? Join us over in Club DTU, where you'll receive early access to all of our podcasts, live race day updates, exclusive content, special merchandise, discounts, a community chat, personal recognition, and so much more. All inside one place, Club DTU.
I like that. So what would you say are some do's and don'ts, whether it's handling, controversial topics, the drivers, like you said, it's a heated moment, for anyone. Let's say you're giving a piece of advice, Len, to a fellow writer. What would you say is like, okay, do this, don't do that. Keep your eye out for this.
In a touchy situation, you just got to maybe let him cool off a little bit, right in the heat in the moment when somebody's yelling at a guy, as soon as he walks away, he's going to splat off. But, you try to give him that little bit of time, but then we're also against a deadline. I'm not going to write it right away, but, when I leave, it's hard maybe to get a hold of them. But again, I think guys realize that later, and they know what they've said, and if they don't come back and change it, there's some really guys that embrace that point too, and they'll change midstream and go, no, they'll. One of them was especially good. I'm not going to tell you his name, but he'll get halfway through it and go, no, I can't lie to you. Yeah, I did it, and he deserved it, and he's going to get it again. That's like thing. But you know what? That's the villain in the sport isn't a bad thing. There's been a lot of good guy, bad guy thing over the years that draws attention, draws fans.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to necessarily be the bad guy, but Ted Christopher was a guy in our indoor races. They got booed like crazy. One of the nicest guys and a great friend.
Yeah.
But he would play to that a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
He knew that the people were booing him and he could hear them, but he was also a showman.
Yeah. So I so agree. I forget who I talked about that with, is like having like the hero and the villain. It's good to have that. I don't know. I don't want to say camaraderie, but for promotional purposes, like, who knows if my dad and Brett Hearn ever saw eye to eye once on anything,
Yeah.
but that back then that was like controversial,
There's too many racetracks I go to now when they give the lineup. There's hardly any cheers or boos, but
yeah.
And then places like Grandview, for instance, the Freedom 76, when they introduced their drivers, is a great example of that. That when they, Craig Von Doren gets a share of cheers and boos, and Strunk and Howard, they get way more attention than any other track I think I go to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you go down the line, and Kresley, and there's a lot of their younger guys that are getting the cheers now too. But after you win a lot, of course, a lot of that changes to boos. But your dad always lit them up again at Grandview, or now your brother. He brings that along. But it's too many other places are too quiet. And we, in our indoor series, we try to do a lot spotlight with our drivers when they come out, and they've embraced it, and we've asked them to do that. And the Andy J has his little moonwalk that he does, and a couple of the drivers are bringing their kids out with him now, and
I like that. I like that
and
a lot.
and it really and the people know. Anthony at Cecily had told me he had won 3 Wall Stadium championships, and when people walk up to him, they say, "You're the guy that won in Atlantic City, isn't it?" He said it's crazy. He only raced once a year there, but the attention that race gets is incredible.
Now, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, Lenny. I don't know if it was you specifically, but I could have swore at one of the indoor drivers meetings where someone had basically said, like, listen, if you're gonna like fight, right? Like fight on the track where the fans can see, don't fight in the pits. Was that you guys?
I don't think so, because the state back in the day the state does not allow that, since the incident where the driver got hit on the track, where we used to let them get out, and we always felt that they're not really going to fight in front of the crowd. They're going to argue. That's fine.
Yeah.
But they go in the back, then other people join in, and it is a good draw, and people get all excited, and they're not going to do anything. The people stand there. You can stand there, yell at them or whatnot. They're not allowed to get out of the car anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're out in the infield or something like that, they might point a finger, because if they get out of the car, we have to go red by the New Jersey rules now. But years ago, that wasn't in the rule book, and we used to let them spout off a little bit, and that was a good thing. But we need to put a camera in the back hall when they come off the track. That's where most of that.
I don't know where I heard that, but it's always stuck in the back of my mind, because it I don't know if you watched, I don't even know what night it was, but the Dome the other week, like the guy's like running across the track, goes up into the car, and he's like, it was obviously a little physical, but like how slow it took to the officials to get to the guy. I was like, nah.
Yeah.
There's a fine line.
Yeah, there's a fine line. And again, New Jersey has a rule on that now.
Yes. So. Jersey's beyond strict.
Right.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't let that get out of hand in Allentown either, and try to do the same. You try to be safe about it, but when a guy does point a finger at a guy or whatever, or like Steve Post does an excellent job as an announcer, and he'll go get that guy right away and let him talk, you
Yeah.
know, and he might not say it to his face, but he'll say it over the mic,
Oh
and that's
yeah.
good. That gets all the people riled up.
What do you call it?
Our racing has cleaned up a lot too since we did the cool down zone, the Husky
Yes.
cool down zone.
Mm-hmm.
We had always the indoor racing complaint was that we never put anybody to the rear, but we moved so quickly because we're looking for a 2.5 hour show, and that we go back to green before they realized it, and that guy did get penalized. He
Mm-hmm.
went to the rear with you, or he's behind you, or whatever. So now we make him sit there for a lap, and while the whole field has to pass by him, and that's really played a large part of that. And our racing's a lot better with the track surface we have today too.
Oh yeah.
So I think a lot of that slam banging's gone.
What kind of challenges, speaking of indoor racing, like you feel that you faced to get? You just said track surfaces. You know, to get to where you are. Like there's so much that goes into it that I feel like a lot of people don't even realize. Like, help me out with the terminology of this, Len, but like the indoor races, like with the fumes, you know, you have to monitor that too, right?
Yes, the buildings do that.
Okay.
You know, there's indoor races. I wasn't at St. Louis, but it looked like it was hazy in the dome, unless it was dirt.
Yeah.
Chili Bowl, I've been there. That's hazy and dirty.
Mm-hmm.
In the Northeast, they're not going to allow you to do that, and we wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah.
You know, there's a Board of Health member that monitors the air Atlantic City, and when we first went there, they hadn't had racing 20 years. So those vents were never opened or used. And it took us a while to, you know, where they would call us on the radio, and, you know, the Board of Health, and say, hey, you got to stop. And we'd have to take a break and let it catch up a little bit. And then, you know, they started running outside fans and pushing it. And we figured it out. And now we could run, and they don't even get close to that anymore.
Yeah.
Where Allentown's a brand new building. It's monitored by a guy sitting behind a computer, and they're not even running at half what they could, you know, and they adjust it as the night goes on. So that's not a problem. Track wise, setting up is a lot of work. My son Davey handles all of that at the different arenas, and the dirt races 10 times more work with bringing the dirt in and setting all that up. So and we're not there for a month like Chili Bowl or St. Louis. I don't know how many days they get to clean up or whatever, but they have an event, you know, the week before. We come in that Sunday, and we have to build the fence and put the walls up, and the dirt to come in till Tuesday to get Tuesday, Wednesday, and then we're on the track on Thursday, you know.
That's crazy.
So there's a lot of going on. That has to be out of there by Wednesday. So as soon as the race is over at our indoor races, you'll see the fence coming down or the banners coming off, but people are still in the back in Victory Lane because it's all hands on. The firemen help us. Every official, you know, tries to at least get us to the point where they can turn that thing around in 24 hours and get it back to where it was.
It is impressive. So the indoor racing, I feel, has definitely become a fan favorite during the off season. I mean, I always look forward to it. But what do you think makes these events, you know, you've got Allentown, Trenton, Atlantic City, like what do you think makes them so special for not just the fans, but like the racers too?
Well, I think people, again, it's not overdone. It's only once a year at each venue, and it's an event, I think. I mean, we work really hard at that. Jay Dugan, Radical Designs, has been with us for a few years. He does we have great jumbotrons that we could put things up on. We could work the fans that way. You know, the lights, the announcers that we use, you know, we bring in are different. They're the guys you don't see on a weekly racetrack around here, like Steve Post and Paul Smoles and the like. We try to, you know, do a lot of different things to entertain the fans, and then and also they make sure they have a good time. You know, in racing, only one guy wins. It's not like a football team where there's only one winner and one loser, but there's 30 guys on the winning team. And especially in Atlantic City with the atmosphere before and after the races, the places you could eat, and the fun you could have in Wild Wild West and at Tropicana and things of that nature. So we're really lucky that we've had an after party that's grown and grown in Atlantic City at Wild Wild West, and now they've for the first time, or last year they had their own post race party with unofficial post race, and now they are, and they're boosting the winner's share. They're putting in $1,500 for each night to the winner to go there afterwards. Now
That's awesome.
He was going there on his own and spending money. Now he'll have more spending money. So the winner will go there and go on the stage. It was first time last year. You know, there's 1,000 or so, 1,500 people, 2,000 people in that Wild Wild West that didn't go to the races, but maybe they'll come next year. Now that they were introduced to the winner, and they hang out and they all drink out of that big gold cup and get their pictures taken, even if they were there for a wedding or a bachelorette party or bachelor party. A lot of them stop over and enjoy the evening.
I feel, and I admire that, because racing, it's not just about the race. Like you're entertaining, you're playing music, doing X, doing this, tossing stuff into the stands, doing the fan fest, doing the fan fest, and then you've got the after party. You even do a motorsports party, you know, like atmosphere, events, more than just racing.
And it's got to be quick too.
Yes.
Not because of the fumes, but you can't. I think people, certainly the older people, don't want to sit there all day long, you know. So our programs, Danny does that, and he works really hard timing everything out. He has an idea how long it takes, and with a game plan. Of course, things can happen. It doesn't always run on schedule, but we really like the driver introductions. But if we're running late for some reason because of a couple crashes or oil downs, we'll just skip it and go right to the feature real quick. You know, one year we had, I think the third year in Atlantic City, we had a blizzard down there. And it was state of emergency and travel ban and all this stuff. And we were ready to start. And the state said, you have to shut down. Can't run this event. I said, everybody's here that's coming. Not that many came, but the drivers were here. The cars were here. Why can't we run this? And can we run it tomorrow? No. It can be no better tomorrow. I said, well, they're already here. So, let's do it. And they gave us to 9 o'clock to do it. 2-hour show. And afterwards, people came over and said, you know what? That's what we really like. 2.5 hour show, 3 hours tops. And then ever since then, we've worked to that. We used to get done at 12 o'clock, and it was like too long of a show, too drawn out. You got to go one race after another, get one in, get it out, and don't take long breaks. A movie's only 2.5 hours. That's really what you're looking for, entertainment. There's a reason why.
Yeah, it is so true. You guys are always hustling, especially in the back end, in the pits. They're always hollering, you gotta move. Like there's a whole circus going on back there.
There's probably in Atlantic City, there's probably 10 people that never even see a race because they're working and they're like backstage at a play. But they're so important because we've gotten better, but in the beginning we had no PA system. You just can't announce first heat coming up,
Yeah.
And we move so quickly that, they really take a lot of pride in so nobody misses a race. And we do in Atlantic City, we have 2 races. We have one on the track, one in the tunnel, and we have one outside. So we're 3 races, really either racing or ready to race. So we can really hustle. We got a lot of room. We're in Allentown, we're crisscrossing traffic, and we got the people parked in a parking garage. That's where our pit area is. Thank God it's a heated parking garage, or we wouldn't be able to do it there. But that's why we have a limit on cars there in Trenton. We just don't have enough room. We can only take 90 to 100 cars. And the dirt race, we could get considerably more. And even in Allentown, we're shutting off our entries for that. We tried not to turn away our TQ since they're our main division, but we're getting up towards 50 in that now. So that's a lot for there. Every year it's been in the low 40s, and I think we're mid 40s already, heading towards 50. So
hey, I remember being in the tent in Trenton. That wasn't fun.
Yeah, but people actually they prefer that over the building because that's so tight too. Sometimes, but the heated tents and that's crazy because we can't put them up, or the company that puts them up can't put them up until we get all the clay in, so they have to wait. Then they come set their tents, but then we can't take anything out until the tents are gone. So they have to be the first thing out because they block all the path of the big heavy equipment.
Yeah.
Anything we take out that's too big, we can't get back in either. So we have it all stuffed in the infield there.
It's a process.
A lot of moving parts that people
So,
don't know. The order of everything has to go in and out of there.
I can only imagine.
Yep.
The Motorsports Show, Oaks, Pennsylvania. You kind of touched on it, but can you kind of like, what did you envision? I see the benefit in having the Motorsports Show, but what did you originally envision, like the ideal purpose of the show?
Well, it was back then we really didn't know where we were heading, but the idea was to kind of, as time went by, we saw that NASCAR was so popular that if we could get named drivers to come, which we were lucky enough to do, that we could get NASCAR fans to come and then sell them short track racing. The track booths were there. They got a schedule in their hand, and they might only be TV watchers. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, let's go out to the races here. I get a schedule here from Grandview or New Egypt or whoever, Bridgeport. And I think that really helped along the way. And that helped build that up. And then same thing with the distributors started. We really weren't we had speed shops, and the first one to buy a speed shop, and Large Engineering had displays. But, now we have more of the manufacturers, and Pocono Raceway they've been to every show. They started out with us. They took a chance from us from the beginning and helped us get NASCAR Cup cars and that type of stuff. But unfortunately, as time goes along, today's NASCAR stars don't have that same appeal, and they don't have the sponsorship backing that we used to be able to filtrate them through, and get a good deal to get them to come. So we don't have as many of them as we did before, but it still works. I mean, people still come, and the Miss Motorsports, we've done that every year since the beginning, and the Kids Big Wheel Race, and try to have more on the side of different cars that you won't generally see.
I was just like holy, yeah, that makes sense as to why you've always brought in like the big names, the NASCAR names and the drivers, and it makes sense because you want to get them to the grassroots. You want to get some.
Yep, we tried to sell them through that way, right? Yep.
Smart. So then, okay, how do you feel? I mean, other than like the venue, which you talked about the size of it, but how do you feel the show has evolved since you started it?
Well, I mean, it hit major lengths when we were at Fort Washington Expo Center. The location was great. And where we're at now is too. We survived a couple blizzards and COVID. We lost one to COVID, and we didn't. We were able to have it, but we were up to a week before where we didn't know what the regulations were going to be and whatnot. We went to 2 days that year, and some of our hardcore distributors actually were asking for that. So it was like, less of a chance. Okay, we'll do that. And that's worked out really well. And I think it's slowly coming back. We took some time to rebuild it. It's just, it's a different world today too. So you got to keep trying to find different ways to make it work. Okay. We also compete against ourselves running 2 indoor races, right? One before and one after. It's only so much time. People are working a lot more hours today, I think, to make ends meet. So
let's say looking ahead, what is your vision for the future of literally everything that you built? Do you envision building it differently? Do you envision it bigger? Maybe something that your kids have in mind? What's kind of going on in that brain of yours of, all right, 10, 15 years from now, where do you want it to be? Are you happy? Do we want it to be?
Things evolve so quickly. It's really hard to tell, we do have an online edition now, thanks to, the younger generation. I think Davey came up and worked that out, him and Nanny. But, it was really slow. People really didn't embrace it, and they still don't. The majority want the hardcore paper, and the guys that don't, when they win a big race, are calling and trying to get copies because you got to go make a print of it or I send PDFs off to a lot of the guys that get it online, and they get a print made for their wall or something like that, or we actually have a plaque system where you can get something for them.
Yeah.
But I'm afraid the history can go away if those hardcore editions. Steve Bubba wrote a column this week about Skeets Gamble that used to race, and he came to the a museum there in Lattimore Museum recently when Steve was there because he wanted to go through and find out some of his stats when he raced. Well, unfortunately, those things are gone without a newspaper. A track changes hands, and the old people don't pick up the history of the sport or whatever. And the story was about how he went through the area autos. They have a complete set at the Lattimore Museum, and he went through and found out where he finished and how good of what races he won and what dates he won. And there's one we gave a set to the museum at Watkins Glen that has one too. And people do, they call us and ask those type of questions. We're digital now. You can, the last 10, 12 years, you can go online and look back at an edition. But before that, you got to have a hardcore newspaper. And unfortunately, we looked at doing all our editions digitally, but at $1 a page times 50 years times probably 1,000 pages a year, it'd be a little bit time consuming and a little spicy to put all that together. I wish we could.
That would be quite the undertaking. I give you time. Someone can do it. Put them in the corner in the office. They can figure it out.
Yeah. That would be a long time. We'd kill a photocopier doing that or a scanner.
Oh my God. So, Lenny, we're not aging. We're not showing any age here, but you've seen quite a bit, right? You've experienced so much from like every aspect possible in the sport. Like even, your son's racing. Like, are there any changes? I know this is a loaded question, but that you would really like to see in the sport that you feel would help it grow and thrive more?
I'd just like to see them work a little harder in promoting their events to the fans. Like you said, to work the area stuff to get people to come. Because you need new fans, They, the argument that kids today just play video games at home is not the case. I have a grandson that plays sports, and if you go to see him play on a Saturday afternoon, you see the amount of people that are playing, and the venues that are being built for them are going to go right past minor, kids' sports are going to go past, local racing in venues. I mean, there are turf fields and Moscow Lighting, and now you got there's one right where Flemington Speedway, right behind it, Diamond Nation, just got bought by Joshua Harris, who's building these new facilities all over the country. He owns the Sixers, the Washington Redskins, and or not Washington Redskins anymore, the Commanders, and the Devils, and New Jersey Devils hockey team. And now he's bought into this amateur sports deal and the baseball side of it. And they're building these facilities that are just incredible. But, with food stands and well promoted and teams coming from all over the country. It's the kids. I think the kids are just not directed into the motorsport side of it, working on a car, unfortunately, anymore. Their dad didn't, and there's no route for them to get into racing. So I don't know. And then to get them as fans, I mean, we do, our Allentown race, we've had a car in the concourse now for a week, thanks to Mike Roselli, with a poster. So every hockey game people walk by, we'll do the last three between Christmas and New Year's, handing out brochures for the Allentown race. And then we did one event here at Trenton already, and we'll do the monster trucks when they're in town. We just did that circus, whatever that's called, offered circus things with Pastrano's traveling show. We did that a couple weeks ago, but you used to have mall shows years ago. Remember that? Where cars were in the mall. Well, what do you think? Where do you think that somebody saw a race car and, hey, Daddy, let's go see that? You know, those hardcore, it's not costly, but it's time consuming. But I think that's some way we got to get back and get people that aren't going to the races. The roads are filled with people going someplace, but they're not they're not getting off the right exits.
It always boggled my mind. I mean, I'm letting you know I'm going, I don't know, maybe just as many races as you, who knows.
Yeah.
But it always boggled my mind when people would go to a different track and promote their race at that track. I'm like, we're all already racing people. You need to be going out, like you said,
Right.
somewhere else to bring in new people, not like taking these people, or however you'd look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, they're generally looking for competitors when they're doing that. They're trying to
Yeah.
get them to come to a special race or something like that.
Mhm.
But I think too many, they just don't have that public relations guy. You know, the Reading Fairgrounds was so well done, and, the guys, they were at National Speedway. They weren't promoters, or the guy that was making those decisions. The guy at Reading, behind the scenes, was a boxing promoter. You know, that he just knew how to bring people into the grandstands. You know,
Yeah.
the Reading Eagle had a guy there every week covering that race, and you know, and he stopped at the office before he left.
Mhm.
So I think he might have gotten a couple dollars to make sure he came back the next week, or they bought him a lunch or dinner or something. They took care of him, you know,
Yeah.
and they've never missed. They had a photographer there, they had a writer there. But you just don't see that anymore, and that's you know, you need to have that avenue. You're not going to get on the local news, so you got to do something to get people to come out and enjoy that. And you know, I think the shows are so long that the times that when I was a kid, first thing, you know, the races were over at Reading at 10 o'clock or 10:30 or Flemington. You went in and you met the drivers, and we all had our fan. That's how you became, you know, a fan of a driver, you know, the one-on-one contact. Now that the track's racing until 2 o'clock in the morning, that's not going to happen.
So I always like to leave the podcast with a piece of advice, some type of inspiration. So for you, Lenny, is there one piece of advice that you would give someone looking to start their career in, let's just say, motorsports media, you know, in the world that you're engraved in, you know, kind of open-ended, but what would you give them?
Well, it's hard to. That's really hard to say because there's so different ways of doing it. We have a young guy, Jack O'Connor, that graduated from college in journalism, that's writing for us now, and he got a job at the Atlantic City Press, working full time. You know, when he was down there going to college, and he goes to all different races. He learned his trade. He loves the sport, and he's willing to work hard at it. You know, and there are a lot of people that want to get involved. It's just to talk to somebody and that's already doing it, like yourself. Like, how do you do a podcast or whatever? And that just generates the next person in line that's ready to do it. But get people out to come to the races. That's the thing. Tell them how good it is, and maybe again, I'm not a Facebook person, but all I ever hear is how many people complain about this or complain about that. You got to remember that's an avenue that, again, if you got a friend that doesn't go to the races and they see you complaining, why in the world would they go? You know, tell them that there's a reason why you keep going back or we keep going back. There's a lot of good to it. Let's emphasize the good.
I always say every single person that has social media or a phone, you can help promote the sport.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Gosh.
For sure. I mean, you know, again, if you go back, like talking with my grandson playing sports, or my Davies, two girls are now into cheer. But boy, their pictures are on there constantly showing them playing sports and whatnot. And I'm sure that pushes other families with their kids to say, hey, look, they're having a great time, you know, doing this. But, you know, again, I see a lot of racers that promote the sport. You know, they're out there saying, hey, I'm going to go to Williams Grove on Friday night, or going to race Bridgeport, or things like that. I think that's awesome. And we love that when our racers do it too, you know. Reach out, get people to come, and sell them on how good it is, not the negatives.
Exactly. Spot on. Lenny, thank you so much for taking the time to be on. Absolute pleasure. If you know, no pressure, Lenny, but if you happen to know off the top of your head, can you drop the dates of the events, or maybe like how people can find them, of what's coming?
Yeah, if you go to, for the indoor racing, we have its own website. It's indoorautoracing.com. And we start at Allentown PPL Center, January 3rd and 4th, Friday and Saturday. And then we have 2 weeks off, and we have the motorsports show the 24th and the 25th, I believe it is, Friday and Saturday at the Greater Philadelphia Expo Center. And we're going to do we're going to celebrate the 50th anniversary in racing for Ray Everham at that event.
Awesome.
And he's bringing some of his favorite cars from his collection.
That's great.
And he's going to be there, and we're going to have a group of drivers from the local region that raced with him, and hopefully a national driver that he was involved with, and Jay Signori from the IROC series that he worked for is going to come to do a couple things with that on stage. And then Atlantic City is January 31st, February 1st. It's a 2-day show, Friday and Saturday, complete shows both days. We have some little trickery that we're doing this year to reverse the deck a little bit in lieu of some bigger money. In Allentown, we're going to do it, and Atlantic City. Okay. Allentown, if the driver's to win both nights and starts 10th on Saturday, he would get $10,000, and in winnings. And then there's going to be something else that we haven't announced yet. Some more bonus money that's going to go along with the sweeten that pot. On Friday night, I believe that will be. So you could actually end up winning more money on Friday than Saturday, which is our bigger night. And then the dirt race in Trenton is the 26th and 27th, I believe. It's the Friday and Saturday after the Daytona 500. Fantastic. And we'll have 90 of the micro sprints there going for the win. Last year was a fantastic race there with Prego coming on in the last few laps on the bottom to win it. It's funny, the Chili Bowl just cut their laps from 55 to 40, and we had quietly announced that we're going to go 40 laps instead of 50 this year, because the track just seems like it wears out the last 10 laps and they become bottom feeders, and we don't want everybody to ride around the bottom the last few laps. So Davey does that track, and he does a great job with it. And no doubt he would figure it out, but he only got one shot a year. We want to make it a little easier. Atlantic City was 52 when we started, and 40 was the number. And last year, turn 4 spin out by the leader, unfortunately, decided to win. But there was 3 guys that could have won that race, and
that was wild.
It was unfortunate. Yes. It wasn't done on purpose, but what a way to finish it. It always seems like 40 laps is where the action's at. So
that's the golden number. I'm here for it.
Whatever reason, we're doing it.
That's great. Well, Lenny, thank you so much, and thank you everyone for tuning in. I really hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, please be sure to reshare on your social media, and we will catch you right back here next week. Thank you, Lenny.
Thank you for all you do for the sport, too. It's all part of getting people out.
Absolutely. That's what we're here to do.
Yep. Thank you much.